What's going on, everybody? This is Josh, the trainer here at your service. We're here to talk today a little bit about running biomechanics. And by that, I kind of mean just the basics of how the body moves as we're running and what's good and what's not so good or what's not necessarily to your advantage as a runner, all right? So generally the idea with running clearly is to move yourself forward, to propel yourself forward, right? So any movement that's going laterally is going to be undesired, right? So if your feet happen to kick out a little bit as you run, that's undesired movement. If your arms tend to wiggle side to side instead of coming straight forward here, that's undesired movement. And so what's happening is you're taking excess energy and kicking it sideways, which is taken away from the energy you can push to go forward. So it's more laborious and takes a little more work to get to your goals, right? So something like, first thing is start from the bottom up, right? So your feet, for example, you want to run ideally with all 10 toes generally forward. A slight outward tilt is fine, but if your toes are way out or you're kicking them out this way as you're running, chances are that you have a lot of tightness in the ankles and the knees, or possibly even the hips, that are causing your body to have to kind of sway and do all this excess movement, right? The other thing is your knees. If you happen to run with your knees knocking, if you notice people that run kind of as their knees cross, that's also another sign of extremely tight hips. And then from here, also the hip movement clearly, and then your core, things of that nature. So for your upper body, you want to make sure you're coming generally from hip up to shoulder. And if you watch a lot of track runners, they kind of already got that technique down, right? So also, if you look at kids, I mentioned earlier that like tightness in the hips, ankles, and knees, and back, core, are a lot of the reasons why a lot of times our body compensates biomechanically. If you look at kids, they have such elasticity in their muscles because they haven't sat at a desk job for years, and they haven't been sitting down or driving cars, anything like that. So the muscles are still brand new and they're fresh and still growing, so they're very elastic. And so they don't have any of the problems that we have. You watch a kid run, they stay on their toes for like the first 4 or 5 years of life to begin with, and everything stays straightforward. Kids will run right here with their knees up and forward with a tight core and upright and everything like that. And that's exactly how we want to run. So we kind of want to mimic your kids in many of the ways that you check out your running technique. Your legs ideally should act as a spring. If you notice kids, they're always jumping and bouncing. They're very light on their toes. That's because all their muscles and ligaments are lined up and working in sync to act as a spring. Your foot is a spring. You should be able to bounce here with no problem whatsoever. And so if you notice that as you run, you're kind of trudging, and it's more laborious, and you're driving, you're pushing off through your heels, landing on your heels and pushing through your heels. It's a lot of jarring on the joints and muscles as well. So not only are you tight, you also are putting lots of trauma on the joints. And then because of those two things, your running biomechanics are highly inefficient. So it's caused us a lot more work, it's a lot more discomfort, and you're seeing a lot less gains as far as your progress goes. So one thing, make sure that we're stretching. Second thing, make sure that we have in addition to elasticity, make sure that the body is working aligned. And last thing, make sure that everything you're doing is working to push you forward and no excess movement to the side.